After Yhwach was defeated at the end of the Thousand Year Blood War arc, not much was really known about the fate of the surviving Sternritter. Aside from the Sternritter who were killed by the Shinigami or were left for dead due to Yhwach performing Ashwalen, it is later revealed within the Can't Fear Unworld light novels that a select few Sternritter had managed to survive. In this video, we'll be talking about the fate of the surviving Sternritter after the Thousand Year Blood War arc. I'll reveal exactly which of the Sternritter were experimented upon by Mayuri, and by referencing details from the Bleach manga as well as the Can't Fear Unworld light novels, we'll be talking about just how the Sternritter were able to escape from Mayuri's research lab. Be sure to stick around until the end of the video as I'll be talking about how the remains of Gremmy were used to create one of the most powerful hybrid beings within the Can't Fear Unworld light novels. So without further delay, here is my video exploring the fate of the Sternritter after the Thousand Year Blood War arc. Discover the Undead Collection and be amongst the very first to join us on our journey over at Getsuga.com. The Sternritter are amongst the elite soldiers of the Wandenreich. They are made up of roughly 26 members who have each been personally gifted a shrift letter from Yhwach. Following the conclusion of Bleach's final arc, only 6 of the Sternritter were confirmed to be alive within the light novels. Now these include all of the Bambis, which are made up of Liltotto, Candice, Meninas, zombified Bambietta, and Giselle. And then lastly, you have Sternritter Yu the Underbelly, Nanana Najakup. While Meninas, Candice, and Nanana were recruited against their will into the Kurotsuchi Corps unit, Giselle, Liltotto, and Bambietta are hiding out in the sands of Hueco. As the story of Can't Fear Unworld progresses, Liltotto makes a plan to go to the Soul Society in order to rescue the Sternritter who Mayuri is using as research subjects. During Can't Fear Unworld, the Bambis no longer have anyone to lead them following Yhwach's death. The Sternritter literally have no place to call home, and it's pretty much the dawn of a new beginning for their characters. Can't Fear Unworld takes place 6 months after the end of the Thousand Year Blood War arc, as the surviving Sternritter have to face several obstacles in order for them to claim their newfound freedom in a world where Yhwach doesn't exist. Volume 1 of Can't Fear Unworld gets us up to speed with the lives of the Quincy in Hueco. At this time, Hueco is being governed by Rudburn, who was the former leader of the Exequias. After the defeat of Kilgay Oppi, several members of Yhwach's Quincy army were left stranded within Hueco. It's revealed that these Quincy kept up their hopeless resistance against the Arrancar with desperate suicide attacks and guerrilla warfare. Most of the Quincy's eventually were annihilated by Rudburn and his Exequias, and then there hadn't been much Quincy activity within Hueco for several months. But then news breaks about 3 Quincy being sighted. These are of course Liltotto, Bambietta, and Giselle. It's here where we get a flashback to 6 months ago, where Liltotto, Giselle, and Bambietta were being healed by Hashwald's aid. She informs Liltotto that Candice, Meninas, and Nanana were taken in by the captain of the 12th Division. Liltotto knew what kind of a man Mayuri Kurotsuchi was, which led to her feeling some remorse for Candice and Meninas, and she wasn't too concerned about Nanana. Back in the present timeline, Liltotto, Giselle, and Bambietta begin fighting against the Arrancars in Hueco. It had taken several months for the 3 Sternritter to regain their strength, and now that they've finally recovered some of their abilities, they have now taken it upon themselves to find surviving Quincy's in order to launch a surprise attack on the Soul Society's 12th Division. This is so that they can rescue Candice and Meninas. However, they quickly learn that most of the Quincy under Kilgay's unit have already been wiped out. So zombified Bambietta battles Rudburn while the Arrancar Lolly attempts to attack Liltotto, but the Sternritter absorbs Zanpakuto's powers using her shrift ability Glutton. Eventually, Grinjao, Neliel, and Haribel arrive within Hueco, but then someone else makes a mysterious appearance. This is none other than Hikone, a hybrid being which was created by Tokinada and Oremichibane. They had created Hikone as a replacement for the Soul King. Hikone is made up of a combination of souls made up of humans, Shinigamis, Arrancars, and Quincy's. This mixture of souls is controlled by the brain of Gremmy, and Hikone also has multiple fragments of the Soul King within them. Liltotto fails to attack Hikone as the Quincy then make an escape to the world of the living. As they try to understand why none of their attacks were working against Hikone, Liltotto then decides to take advantage of all of the chaos that is currently going on as she plans to make a trip to the Soul Society Society in order to rescue Candice and Meninas. They then leave the world of the living and return to Hueco while Liltotto and Giselle watch the Espada leaving for the Soul Society as they promptly take the opportunity to then follow them. Now in the Soul Society, Mayuri declares to his team that his research will now take a new direction. Mayuri has pretty much exhausted all of the research that he could do on Shinigami, Quincy's and Arancars. He then decides that Fullbringers present an opportunity for trailblazing new technology, and his targets are the three Fullbringers, Ginjo, Giriko and Tsukishima. The three of them have been confirmed to be hiding within Rukongai. In order to find them, Mayuri has enlisted the help of the revived Quincy, Meninas, Candice and Nanana. Instead of these Sternritter being prisoners, they are effectively being treated like guinea pigs. The situation is complicated because the Quincy aren't exactly following orders, but Mayuri has a perfect way of manipulating them. The three surviving Sternritter under the 12th Division's watch are being kept within giant cylindrical tubes. We are shown Candice wrapped in chains in order to seal her, with tubes and electrodes that are attached to her limbs and to the back of her neck. As opposed to healing her injuries, Mayuri had basically left all of the Sternritter to be half dead, and while in this condition he had continued to experiment upon them. These half dead revived Sternritter are now tasked with bringing back the bodies of the Fullbringers. Mayuri has basically manipulated these Quincies to such an extent that the roots of their minds have been eroded. When Candice and Meninas locate Ginjo and the Fullbringers, they engage them in a battle. As the Quincy and Fullbringers continue to fight on the outskirts of Rukongai, they are eventually joined then by Grimmjow. His sudden appearance turns the tide of the battle, as their location easily becomes the most chaotic place within the Soul Society. With Grimmjow turning his attention to fighting against the Fullbringers, Candice and Meninas take the time to figure out what to do next. During this time, Lupi begins to fight Grimmjow, and then Hikone makes a surprise appearance. Candice and Meninas are now unable to bring in the Fullbringers due to Hikone's Zanpakuto Iko Mikidomoe, which is causing a lot of trouble for them. Candice tries to take advantage of the chaos that is unfolding as she attempts to analyze the fighting style of the Fullbringers. As Candice and Meninas continue to struggle on the battlefield, as they are facing off against the creatures that are created by the Zanpakuto Iko Mikidomoe, they are surprised when Liltotto suddenly appears within the Soul Society. It's at this point that Candice could barely believe her eyes. The person that she was separated from 6 months ago, who they have been desperately trying to find some way to contact, has just appeared in front of them without them having to do anything. Liltotto tells Candice that they were planning on getting them out of the Soul Society by taking advantage of all of this chaos. Once Giselle and Meninas also arrive onto the battlefield, the Bambis consider running away. However, Liltotto remarks that it would be useless, especially if Mayuri has placed explosives within Candice and Meninas. Eventually, Liltotto is able to speak to Mayuri via a communications device that is hidden within Candice's uniform. Liltotto offers to Mayuri a proposal that is too tempting to refuse. She states that they will cooperate with Mayuri if he decides to let Candice and Meninas go. Mayuri, on the other hand, is stubborn and reminds Liltotto that she is in no position to be making deals with him. Mayuri does clarify here though that there are no hidden explosives within the bodies of Candice and Meninas. This is because Head Captain Shunsui and the Central 46 had informed Mayuri the other day that putting explosives into the body of subordinates is forbidden. Because Candice and Meninas are a part of his corps unit, they are effectively his soldiers rather than his research subjects. Now that there are so few Quincy left within the world, they are pretty much like antique pieces, so Mayuri has no plan to destroy them. After hearing all of this, Liltotto states that she wants the freedom of Candice and Meninas. Mayuri then offers her a counter proposal. He wants the Quincy to gather as much data as they can on the hybrid being Hikone and on their Zanpakuto Iko Mikidomoe. He then comically states if they are able to do this for him, then he will promote them from experimental research subjects to his mercenary soldiers. And as a bonus, if they are able to catch the Fullbringers, then he agrees to increase the height of Liltotto. Giselle and the Quincy reluctantly agree to Mayuri's proposal before they proceed to attack Iko Mikidomoe while Liltotto confronts Hikone. Liltotto becomes unnerved as she senses Gremmy's Reiatsu coming from Hikone. The hybrid being reveals to Liltotto that an important part of Grammy was used as an ingredient in order to create Hikone. This is one of the biggest revelations within the entirety of Can't For Your Own World. Grammy was bestowed with the shrift letter V for the visionary, thus allowing Grammy to convert anything that he had imagined into reality. After Grammy was defeated by Kimpachi and his spiritual pressure had ceased to exist, the container that was holding Grammy's brain had been taken taken by Tokinada. We then get a flashback to the past just before the second invasion of the Quincy. The events of this flashback take place within the headquarters of the Quincy, Silburn. We are shown a cage which houses the prisoner Gremmy. It's apparent that Gremmy is avoided by all of the Quincy, but Liltotto approaches him and makes some casual conversation with him, even going as far as to tease him by calling him a monster. Liltotto asks Gremmy for some sweets, and he is able to imagine a packet of donuts for her. She asks Gremmy what he is going to do once the war is over, but Gremmy states that he hasn't really ever thought about it, but he tells her that he may try to take up cooking. From the Can't For Your Own World light novels, it's evident that despite how powerful Gremmy is, he is just somebody who is trying to learn how to live his life. Following Liltotto meeting a caged Gremmy, the two part ways soon after, not realizing that this is the final time that they were going to speak. Within the present day, Liltotto is struggling to digest the fact that what remains of Gremmy is now within Hikone's body. The loss of Gremmy is definitely difficult for her to deal with, because clearly some part of her had nurtured the hopes that Gremmy might still be alive. The battle comes to a temporary halt once Hikone is summoned by Tokinada. Nanao then appears on the battlefield and offers to take everyone present under the authority of the 1st Division to the household of Kukakushiba. This is a very tense gathering because of the sheer number of people that have gathered here. You've got the 3 Fullbringers, and then Shinigami like Shinji, Nanao, Yoruichi, along with 3 Arankars, Grimjow, Neliel, and Haribel, and then the Kurotsuchi Corps unit, Candice and Maninas, along with Liltotto, Giselle, and also Bambietta. You've got other members of the Kurotsuchi Corps unit like Dodoni, Saruchi, Lupi, and Charlotte, and lastly, Mayuri and Nanana were also there too. Shunsui explains that the reason why he has gathered all of them together here is to mount a counterattack against Tokinada Tsuneyashiro, the head of one of the 4 great noble families, the Tsuneyashiro family. Things are serious because Tokinada intends to replace the Soul King with Hikone, and he's being helped by Ora Michibane and Zenosuke Yamada. Shunsui wants the help of the Quincy, Fullbringers, and the Arankar in order to take down Tokinada, because it wouldn't look right if the Gotei 13 were going against one of the members of the noble families. Later, within Can't For Your Own World, Tokinada ends up being defeated by the alliance of the Shinigami, Quincy, Arankar, and Fullbringers. Mayuri then ends up opening a portal to the Valley of Screams. Within the Valley of Screams, there is a massive horde of hollows created by Iko Mikidomoe, who itself has also transformed into a monster, which appears to be battling against the Arankars. Now, on the other hand, Liltotto and the Quincy end up facing off against Hikone. The Quincy's have a lot of trouble during this fight due to Hikone's immense spiritual pressure. Hikone had then started to gather an immense amount of spiritual pressure within their right hand, and it appeared as though this attack was going to be impossible to evade, but then suddenly Kimpachi arrives to join the fight against Hikone, as the Quincy retreat, not wanting to get caught up in Hikone's battle against Kimpachi. The 5 Quincy then eventually battle against Iko Mikidomoe and then Tokinada. Tokinada here was using Kyoka Suigetsu's ability to confuse the Quincy. The Quincy then take a bit of a backseat as Hisagi joins the battle along with the Arankars, as an alliance forms between all of the races as they collectively work together to take down Tokinada and Hikone. After the major battle had wrapped up, all of the different individuals had gone their separate ways. Within the Research and Development Institute, Mayuri furiously scolds the Kurotsuchi Corps unit for their failure in capturing Hikone and Iko Mikidomoe. After electrocuting them as punishment, Mayuri states that he is satisfied to some degree since there is a little bit of data that has been gathered on Tokinada and Hikone at least. Nanana watches the Bambis from afar as he admits to himself that luck is not on his side, as he is the only Quincy who did not manage to escape. Upon hearing his complaints, Mayuri reassures him that it may appear as though he has released the Bambis, but he has put a collar on them and inserted some tracking bacteria into their bodies, so whenever he needs them, he will just call them back. We are then taken to a specific place within the world of the living, as Candice and Maninas have left for the world of the living, and they are now with Liltotto, Bambietta, and Giselle. The Bambis have left behind their old Quincy clothes and have decided to wear their own personal forms of clothing from the human world. They appear to be lounging at some cafe within a certain country. The zombie-like colour of Bambietta's skin does occasionally get a stare from onlookers, but otherwise the Bambis have blended in like normal townspeople. It would be cool to imagine that the Bambis are now eating ice cream somewhere within Germany instead of having them located within Karakura town somewhere. The Can't For Your Own World light novels do a fantastic job of wrapping up a lot of the loose ends that were left behind following the end of the 1000-Year Blood War arc, and I'm really happy with how much screen time that the surviving Sternritters got within these light novels. Not only are the Bambis finally reunited, we get a solid story behind what had happened to them after the defeat of Yhwach, and how in the end they did end up getting somewhat of a happy ending, with the Bambis attaining some semblance of freedom within their new lives, as long as Mayuri decides not to take back Candice and Meninas. Despite all of the differences that the Bambis may have, it's really nice to see them all care for each other, and this theme of friendship definitely exists within this group. Liltotto was given a massive opportunity to shine within the Can't For Your Own World light novels, as we learn more about her backstory with Grammy, as well as her taking on a bit more of a leadership role within the Bambis. And honestly, I think it's thanks to Liltotto that the Bambis ended up getting a happy ending after all. Out of all of the Bambis, she is the one who remains the most level-headed, as she always manages to figure out a way for her and her fellow Bambis to escape safely within Can't For Your Own World. While the Bambis no longer have their holy forms, because it's revealed that Uryu is the only Quincy to have kept his holy form following the end of the 1000-year Blood War. Bambis are still able to use their Shrift abilities to some extent, so I wouldn't rule out them making a reappearance during the upcoming manga Hell arc. Given the sheer amount of storylines that take place concurrently within Can't For Your Own World, I'm just glad that we got a good opportunity to delve into the fates of the surviving Sternritter. We have now reached the point of the video where I want to hand over the discussion to all of you. What do you guys think about the fate of the Sternritter following the end of the Bleach manga? Did you know that Mayuri had recruited the Sternritter into his corps unit? Were you aware of Giselle, Bambietta and Liltotto escaping to Hueco Mundo? Or about how the Quincy eventually worked together with the Shinigami in order to take down Tokinada and Hikone? If there's anything that I've forgotten to mention about the surviving Quincy, then definitely let me know in the comments of this video. And lastly, thank you for making it to the end of this one, and I cannot wait to see you in my next Bleach Explained video. A massive thank you goes out to all of my amazing Patreon supporters for helping to make this video possible. If you also want to support the channel and see your name in the end of my videos, then check out my Patreon, which has loads of perks like early video access and so much more. Thank you for sticking around till the end of the video, and whatever you contribute will mean a lot to me.